There are wounds that do not bleed. They echo instead quietly, like an old song trapped inside the body. Sometimes it's not anger or sadness that defines a person, but the silence beneath them. The pause before they speak. The way they shrink in moments that ask for presence. Every adult carries a child inside them, unseen, unheard, still waiting. Waiting for the gentle voice that never came. For safety that was promised but never built. The neglected inner child doesn't scream. It whispers through patterns, perfectionism, overthinking, avoidance. The endless need to be good enough. This is not a story of blame, but of recognition, of meeting the forgotten parts that built our survival, and finally asking them to rest. There are childhoods that look perfect from the outside. Neat uniforms, clean homes, polite smiles. Yet inside those small bodies lives an ache without a name. The ache of being unseen. The neglected child learns early that love is earned through stillness. They discover that quietness brings peace, that emotions cause distance. So they shrink their laughter, swallow their tears, and master the delicate art of not needing too much. No one tells them this is neglect. There are no bruises, no harsh words to remember. Only the emptiness of moments that should have been full. Birthdays without attention, comfort that never came. The way a parent's eyes slid past theirs. Busy, distracted, or simply tired. And so the child begins to disappear. They become easy, responsible, good. They learn to predict moods, to avoid conflict, to sense the emotional weather of a room before speaking. They carry the invisible task of keeping everything okay. In school, they're praised for independence. At home, for not making a fuss. But inside, a quiet story begins to write itself. One that says, my feelings are too much, my needs are a burden. I am safest when I am invisible. This is how the neglected inner child is born. Not from cruelty, but from absence. From the space between what was needed and what was given. They grow up believing that love means silence. That closeness requires control. That emotions are something to hide, not share. It's a subtle kind of wound. One that hides beneath competence and calm. As adults, these children look fine. They build lives that function. Jobs that reward them for being unshakable. Relationships that praise their stability. But beneath the calm exterior lies a small, trembling voice. Still asking, do you see me now? There are moments when the mask slips. A simple argument that feels unbearable. A friend's distance that brings disproportionate pain. It's not the present that hurts, but the echo of every moment they were unseen. In their quiet rooms, they replay memories they can't fully name. They remember the sound of the television replacing conversation. The heavy silence after crying. The way they learned to comfort themselves in corners of their mind. They built an inner world, imaginative, private, full of invisible friends. Because the outer one felt too cold. Neglect does not teach a child that love is bad. It teaches them that love is uncertain. That care must be earned. That they must become useful to be kept. So they grow into adults who overfunction. Who apologize for existing. Who anticipate others' needs before their own. Who feel guilt when resting. And shame when asking for help. They become the caregivers, the peacemakers. The ones who never need, never break, never cry. But inside there is still that small child. Standing in a quiet room. Holding out empty hands. Waiting for someone to notice. Sometimes that longing emerges as anxiety. Sometimes as perfectionism. Sometimes as a deep loneliness even in love. Because love for them is still a performance. A fragile balance between being seen and being safe. The neglected inner child does not disappear with time. They hide in gestures, in pauses. In the moments an adult cannot explain their sadness. They show up when someone says, you're allowed to feel. And something inside trembles, wanting to believe it, but not knowing how. Recognition is the first crack in the shell. The moment someone finally sees that their strength. was born from survival, not peace. It's the quiet beginning of remembering, the beginning of returning to the child who learned to disappear, and gently, patiently, inviting them back into the light. No wound begins with the one who carries it. Every story of neglect is a continuation of another. The parent who could not love openly was once a child who learned the same silence. Emotional absence is often inherited, not by choice, but by repetition. It starts generations back. A father who was told to be strong, never soft. A mother who grew up being the caretaker of her own parents' pain. They learn that love is duty, that affection is distraction, that emotions are private, even dangerous. And when they have children of their own, they pass on what they know, not because they do not care, but because care for them has always been silent. Neglect does not always come from malice. Sometimes it's the quiet exhaustion of a parent, trying to survive a life that never gave them room to feel. Sometimes it's trauma buried so deeply that they can't even recognize the emptiness they create. They love deeply, fiercely, but their love is filtered through the language of survival, where emotion is a risk, and vulnerability feels like failure. The child senses this unspoken truth early. They feel the emotional tension in the room, the weight of unspoken sorrows passed down like heirlooms. When a parent cannot look into their child's eyes during pain, it's not rejection, it's remembrance. It's the echo of every time they were met with silence. This is how cycles continue, a lineage of invisible children, each learning to hide their need, each building a mask strong enough to protect them, but heavy enough to suffocate their softness. Psychologists call it intergenerational trauma, the unconscious transmission of emotional wounds. But beyond the term lies something heartbreakingly simple. People who never learned how to be held. People who were taught that love means endurance, that showing pain burdens others, that to be worthy you must be fine. Many adults remember their parents as good people. And they were. They worked hard, provided, sacrificed. But goodness does not cancel emptiness. You can feed a child and still starve their heart. You can protect them from harm and still leave them alone inside. The roots of neglect grow in the smallest gestures. A sigh when a child cries. A quick change of subject when emotions rise. A parent's eyes that look away just a moment too soon. The child learns my feelings make them uncomfortable. And so begins the lifelong training of suppression. It's important to understand. Most neglect is not cruelty. It's confusion. It's a parent replaying what they once endured, believing that stoicism builds strength. They think they're preparing their child for the world, but what they're really doing is teaching them how to survive without connection. Over time, families normalize the absence. Don't be dramatic. Other people have it worse. Be grateful you have everything you need. And so gratitude becomes a disguise for emptiness. The child learns to thank the world for giving them half of what they needed, and to blame themselves for wanting more. In many homes, love was practical. Food, shelter, education. But not emotional. It was a love of responsibility, not intimacy. And because it wasn't cruel, it's harder to name. How do you grieve something that technically existed, but never touched your soul? The neglected inner child grows out of this paradox. Being loved and unseen. Cared for yet lonely. It's a wound that doesn't ask for sympathy, only understanding. When they grow up, they often find themselves drawn to the same kind of people. Those who are distant, busy, or emotionally unavailable. Not out of weakness, but out of familiarity. The body seeks what it recognizes, even when it hurts. Healing begins with recognizing that the neglect was real, even if it came wrapped in good intentions. That love without presence is still a kind of loss, and that beneath every emotionally distant adult lies a child who learned too early that being unseen was safer than being disappointed. There's a quiet biology behind the pain. Emotional neglect doesn't just shape memories, it rewires the brain. Every sigh, every moment of absence, etches itself into the body's chemistry, teaching it how to survive in a world that feels unsafe to feel. In the earliest years of life, a child's brain develops through connection. When they cry and someone responds, their nervous system learns safety. The world hears me and I matter. But when those cries meet silence, a different lesson begins to form. The brain learns to conserve emotion, to shut down what will not be received. This is how self-protection becomes physiology. Neuroscience calls this attachment wiring. It is the blueprint the brain builds to predict how relationships will treat it. Secure attachment, when comfort meets distress, creates calm regulation. Neglect, however subtle, creates what researchers call insecure or avoidant attachment. The child learns to turn inward for comfort, to minimize emotion, to disconnect from need. Inside the brain, the stress response becomes overactive. The amygdala, the small almond-shaped region, responsible for fear and threat, stays alert, scanning for rejection. The prefrontal cortex, the part that calms and makes sense of emotion, struggles to build its bridges. Without consistent nurturing, those neural pathways never fully settle. The result is an adult who appears calm, but carries quiet hypervigilance, a body that's always ready for emotional disappointment. In psychology, this is known as emotional dysregulation. Not the inability to control emotions, but the learned habit of never fully feeling them. Neglected children grow up highly functional, yet emotionally detached. They intellectualize pain, explain it away, and pride themselves on composure. But underneath, the nervous system still hums with the energy of childhood panic, a body waiting for love that never arrives. Even the hormones tell the story. Chronic emotional neglect raises cortisol, the body's stress hormone, and lowers oxytocin, the hormone of trust and bonding. It's a subtle imbalance that changes how safety feels. For some, intimacy feels suffocating. For others, distance feels like home. Their bodies confuse calm with emptiness, because true emotional warmth was never consistent enough to feel safe. Modern psychology often speaks of the inner child as a metaphor, but neuroscience shows it is not metaphor at all. The patterns of attachment are biological, living circuits formed by experience. Every time an adult flinches from affection or over-apologizes for existing, they are not weak. They are acting out the neural legacy of being emotionally unseen. There's also the concept of implicit memory, memories without words. Before language develops, children store experiences in sensation, in tone, in rhythm. So even if they can't recall the moment of being ignored, their body remembers. The silence of a room, the distance in a parent's eyes, becomes a map of how to survive. This is why adults sometimes feel sadness for no reason, or find themselves triggered by small rejections. The body is remembering what the mind has long forgotten. Psychodynamic theorists call this repetition compulsion, the unconscious pull to recreate the emotional environment of childhood, in an attempt to master it. It's why the neglected child may choose partners who mirror their parents' distance, hoping that this time it will end differently. But the brain doesn't know the difference between past and present until awareness intervenes. Awareness then becomes the first form of healing, because what the brain learned in defense can also unlearn in safety. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to change, offers a quiet hope. What was wired in fear can be rewired in gentleness. The science reveals something tender, that the neglected inner child was never weak, only adaptive. Their silence was intelligence, their detachment a form of survival. And though their past lives in every cell, so does the possibility of peace. The hidden self is not broken. It is simply waiting for a new pattern, a nervous system that finally learns what it means to be held and to stay there. Inside every grown adult, there are two voices. One is composed, rational, organized, endlessly responsible. The other is small, trembling, still waiting to be chosen. The conflict between them is quiet but constant. It's the war between survival and softness. The neglected inner child doesn't disappear with age. They simply retreat behind the adult self, the mask that learned to function. The adult manages, plans, and stays in control. But beneath that surface, the child still aches for something deeper, to be held without condition. This tension shows up in ordinary moments. When someone offers kindness, and it feels almost unbearable. When a compliment feels suspicious. When love feels like danger. The adult wants to believe in safety, but the child inside has lived too long without it. That is the paradox, the longing for closeness, and the terror of it at the same time. They crave intimacy yet build walls. They say, "I'm fine," while hoping someone will see through it. Every time affection approaches, the child's nervous system rings an alarm. Don't trust it, it won't last. This is what psychologists call attachment conflict. The inner push and pull between wanting to connect and needing to protect. The adult self says, "You're safe now," but the body remembers when they were. Safety isn't an idea, it's a sensation. And for those raised in emotional absence, safety feels unfamiliar, even wrong. So they overcompensate. They become the caretaker, the listener, the one who never needs, never complains. They earn love by giving it, because asking for it feels dangerous. And when love is finally offered freely, they doubt it, because the neglected child inside doesn't know how to receive without earning. In relationships, this war becomes visible. A partner's silence feels like abandonment. A disagreement feels like rejection. Logic says they're not leaving, but the child inside doesn't hear logic, only echoes. Every pause in affection feels like the old house of childhood, where warmth faded without warning. This is why some adults self-sabotage love. They retreat first, withdraw, or build distance, because losing control feels worse than loneliness. Others chase affection endlessly, trying to fill the absence with constant reassurance. Different behaviors, same wound. Both are strategies of a child, still trying to survive emotional starvation. Even success can become a battlefield. They work tirelessly, achieve endlessly, as if each accomplishment might finally prove their worth. But when the applause fades, the emptiness returns. The child whispering, "Was I enough this time?" Resistance appears when healing begins, because healing asks for softness, for feeling the things that were once unbearable. And the adult self resists it with everything it has. They fear that if they open the door to grief, it will swallow them whole. But what waits there is not destruction. It is the child waiting to be seen. Therapists often describe this as parts work, where the adult self learns to meet the inner child, with the care once denied. But before compassion comes conflict. The mind argues, the body tightens, because it feels unnatural to nurture what was once ignored. Yet beneath that resistance lies truth, that both selves are trying to protect the same heart. The adult builds walls to prevent new pain. The child hides behind them, hoping someone will break through. The war within is not about weakness. It's about loyalty, the loyalty to an old pattern that once kept them alive. But survival is not the same as living. And one day, the adult begins to sense that difference. They start to feel the exhaustion of pretending. They realize that control is not peace, that silence is not strength, that behind every overachiever, every caretaker, there is a child who only ever wanted to rest. The war within doesn't end with victory. It ends with surrender. When the adult stops fighting the child and starts listening, when they whisper, "You're safe now, you don't have to earn love anymore." And for the first time, the silence inside becomes something else. Not emptiness, but relief. There comes a moment when the mask begins to tremble. Not all at once and not dramatically. Just a quiet fracture in the shell of composure. Perhaps it's a small disappointment that feels strangely unbearable. A conversation that leaves the heart too exposed. A day when exhaustion turns into tears. And the adult who's always fine suddenly is. This is how it begins. Not with clarity but collapse. The carefully managed facade that has protected for years starts to loosen, and for the first time the neglected inner child stirs. Not as a memory, but as a feeling too raw to name. At first they think something is wrong. Why am I overreacting? Why can't I just move on? But beneath those questions lies the truth. The emotions rising now are not about the present. They are echoes decades old, finally breaking through the silence. The human mind has limits. You can only carry unacknowledged pain for so long, before it demands to be felt. And when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. It breaks through daily routines, interrupts conversations, leaks into dreams. It whispers through anxiety, through burnout, through the sudden sense that the life you built no longer fits you. When the mask cracks, grief seeps through. Grief for the childhood that never was, for the softness that never had a home. It is not self-pity, it is remembrance. The body mourning years spent pretending not to need. Many describe this stage as a breakdown, but in truth it's a breaking open. The adult self finally collapsing into the arms of its own truth. Because all along, the perfectionism, the control, the endless strength, they were armor that worked, until it didn't. When someone has lived in emotional survival for years, feeling again can feel dangerous. The flood of sadness, anger, or longing seems unbearable. But every tear that surfaces now belongs to a version of the self that was never allowed to cry. It's not regression, it's reunion. The child's voice finally reaching the surface. Sometimes this awakening is triggered by love, meeting someone who sees them too deeply, or offers patience where they expect rejection. Other times it's triggered by loss, a breakup, a death, an ending that rips away distraction. Whatever the form, it is life insisting on honesty. The neglected inner child doesn't awaken in comfort. They awaken in crisis, when the old ways of coping stop working, when being strong no longer protects, when the body says enough. That is the moment when realization dawns, that the pain was never about weakness. It was about hunger, for presence, for love, for self. This stage is fragile. Some retreat again, afraid of what they've uncovered. Others seek help, therapy, journaling, quiet reflection. Not to fix, but to finally listen. Because what rises now are the buried truths. The loneliness of a silent dinner table. The confusion of never being comforted. The guilt of needing too much. In this chapter of awakening, compassion becomes oxygen. Without it, shame takes over. Shame that says you should be over this by now. But the truth is simpler. You cannot outgrow what you've never processed. You can only mate it. When the mask cracks, it is not the end of who you were. It is the beginning of who you are beneath the performance. A slow unlearning of every story that said, "I must be perfect to be loved." And as the pieces fall away, something remarkable happens. The face beneath the mask isn't broken. It's tender, it's alive. It's the same child who waited, now blinking in the light, wondering if this time someone will stay. This is the turning point, the first breath of truth after years of holding it in. And though it may hurt, it is the most honest pain a person can feel. The ache of finally coming back to themselves. Healing doesn't arrive like sunlight, sudden, blinding, complete. It comes like dawn instead, a slow illumination that gently reveals what's been sleeping in the dark. Reparenting the self begins this way, not as a task, but as a remembering of tenderness. After years of neglect, both inner and inherited, the adult must learn to speak the language the child never heard. Patience, gentleness, and presence. This is the essence of reparenting, to become slowly the person that child once needed. It doesn't begin with big gestures. It begins in small, quiet moments. Choosing rest without guilt. Acknowledging emotions without judgment. Saying to oneself, you are allowed to feel. At first, those words feel foreign, even foolish. But over time, they start to root in the nervous system. As truth, reparenting is not about erasing the past. It's about tending to the parts of you that never received care the first time. It's realizing that healing doesn't mean forgetting your parents' failures. It means releasing their power to define your worth. Forgiveness, if it comes, is not an obligation. It's a byproduct of understanding that their silence was born from their own wounds. Psychologists often describe this process through inner dialogue, imagining the adult self meeting the child self. Some picture sitting beside them, offering words that were never spoken. You didn't deserve to be alone. You were never too much. You were always worthy of love. In the beginning, the mind resists. It feels strange to comfort oneself, as if the voice of care cannot belong to the same mouth that once spoke self-blame. But slowly the body begins to believe, because safety is learned repetition. Every act of kindness, every pause before self-criticism, rebuilds the trust that was once shattered. Healing requires patience, because the neglected child measures time differently. They have waited decades in silence, and they will not come forward all at once. Some days they will hide again. Other days they will whisper memories. You didn't know you remembered. You cannot force their return. You can only make it safe enough for them to appear. And safety for the inner child is not found in perfection. It's found in consistency, in showing up for yourself, even when it feels unnatural, in learning that discipline and gentleness can exist in the same breath. Reparenting often means setting boundaries where none existed before. It means saying no without apology, because every no is a declaration. I am not here to disappear anymore. It means choosing relationships that feel reciprocal, not ones that mirror the old emptiness. This is not selfishness. It is self-preservation finally practiced as love. For some, reparenting also means grieving, mourning the childhood that could have been, the hugs never given, the birthdays forgotten. Grief becomes sacred work here, because to mourn what was missing is to honor that it mattered. The beauty of this stage is subtle but profound. As the adult nurtures the inner child, the roles begin to blur. The child softens, and the adult becomes less rigid. They begin to coexist, no longer enemies, but companions walking toward the same peace. Therapists often remind their clients, healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were, before the world taught you fear. That innocent curiosity, that natural trust and joy, they are still there waiting beneath the armor. One day the adult looks in the mirror and no longer sees a stranger. They see both, the survivor and the child, the protector and the one who was protected at last. And in that reflection, something quiet unfolds, the realization that they were never unworthy, only unseen. And now, finally, they have learned to see themselves.